It's loud, it's uncomfortable, it's very impractical. I'll take it. Today we're going to show you our 1979 Cafe Racer Ducati, and we're going to explain why we bought it, and also we're going to find out whether I can still ride this bike. I've owned this bike 21 years, and in that time the engine's blown up twice, I've had arthritis, and I've had my hip replaced, and I haven't been riding this bike for the last few years. So today I'm going to take it out for a ride and see whether I can actually ride it with some degree of comfort, and see how far I can get. It was late 2004 and I saw an advert in Motorcycle News for this 900 Ducati. So it took my fancy, so we went to have a look at it. And as we drove towards the house, I saw the bike on the driveway, and we barely turned the engine off on the car when I decided I'm going to buy that. Has that ever happened to you? Have you made an impulse buy by just looking at something without test driving it, without hearing it? You just know straight away that you've got to have this machine. Now this bike is a Ducati SSD, and at the time in the 70s Ducati had a 900 SS, which is their out and out sports bike. They also had a 900 Dharma, which was a sports touring bike. But oddly, sitting in the middle of that, Ducati had a bike somewhere in the middle, and that was the SSD. So it wasn't quite as sporty as the 900 SS, not quite as sport touring-y as the 900 Dharma, but it was so close to either or. I always found it interesting that it had these three models all very close together. That's lovely. The bike isn't exactly as it was when I bought it. It's been through a few changes since then. But the first thing I did after I purchased the bike was I changed the rear shock absorbers. It had terrible shock absorbers on the back. And I also, for peace of mind, I took the cylinder heads off, and they took them to a specialist Ducati service place to have all the shimming redone and checked. Now the bike was advertised as a tuned bike, and it was tuned. The bike has many upgrades in the engine. It had high compression pistons, it had a gas flowed head, It had large valves and it had an Imola camshaft. So it's quite a lumpy low down, and it's quite difficult to get a nice even tick over with that camshaft in it. But that kind of makes it just more exciting. The bike is a bit more of a challenge to ride, and that all adds to the excitement of riding this bike. Now this is a 70s Ducati, so what I'm going to tell you next is not going to come as a surprise. Less than a year later, I was riding the bike quite enthusiastically, and boom, the engine proper blew up. Made all sorts of terrible noises, and I had to pull over to the side of the road. It really did sounded nasty. So on investigation, it found that the big ends had let go. Well, it seems what happened was that the big ends were starved of oil, and these Ducatis, they share this crank pin. The conrods share this crank pin, and in there's like a sludge trap where any heavy sludge builds up and accumulates inside. And what can happen over time, if it builds up too much, it can literally block the oil feed holes to the bearings. And this is what happened. Now, to replace and repair this, you have to buy a kit. You buy a conrod kit, which is all this, and it's not cheap. So anyway, that's part of owning a Ducati. Went back to the specialist with my engine and said, look, can you rebuild it? Now the conrods and the pins all come as a kit, so it's expensive. Well, I just scratched my bike. So it's an expensive operation to put it all right. Also, I needed new pistons and liners. The liners are separate from the barrels, so you can imagine the cost was was getting a little bit much. Now this specialist didn't supply the liners or the pistons. I had to buy them somewhere else, so I got myself new high compression pistons and liners, and this specialist didn't do machining work, so I took it to a machining specialist, and I had the new liners once in the barrels bored to match the pistons, and then the specialist put the engine back together, and all is well, so I thought. I ran the bike in carefully, and after 250 miles I was just thought I can go over to 4,000 RPM now, which I did, and it nipped up quite comprehensively actually, so not too happy about that. here's where my story of the Ducati gets a little bit complicated. So the specialist who built the engine didn't admit liability because they hadn't rebored the piston and barrels, but they did admit to not checking the clearance. So I spoke to another specialist, a very methodical specialist I'd found, who would only do things properly. And this fella said he did know about these high compression pistons, and they were prone to expansion a little bit more than the rebore tolerance would allow, and you'd need to rebore them a little bit bigger to allow for this expansion, and that's probably what happened here. He didn't recommend I did this again with the same pistons. I'm going to sneeze. No, I'm not. So the second specialist advised me not to reuse, not to go down this high compression piston route again. He happened to have a brand new old stock of matched Nickesil pistons and barrels from a Mike Hayward replica, and he only had one of these sets left, and he wanted quite a bit of money for them. So what am I to do? I agreed to buy them, but this time the second specialist was going to rebuild the engine and get everything exactly right, and that's what we did. So the bike has been, since that day, it's been faultless. I've had no problems at all, and I know that I've got matched Nickesil new old stock pistons and barrels, so they should last a long time. And if I keep changing the engine oil and the filter regularly, I shouldn't have this recurring problem of the sludge strap. Since the second rebuild, the bike has been, as I said, faultless, and I've done a few track days on it, Cadwell and Mallory Park. It's a really quite a good track bike, although I've only literally done those 2 courses. It is a little bit, you notice the long wheelbase on some tight hairpins. It does feel awfully long, but apart from that, the handling is so good on this bike. I've also been to the Ace Cafe on it. I used to go from Bedfordshire to Eastbourne on it to see my mother, who lived in Eastbourne at the time, and that was quite a thing to ride that thing around the M25 when it's really busy. But because it's slim, it does cut through the traffic really well. It seems to me even the inside of a Ducati engine looks beautiful. So if I can't ride this beautiful Ducati, then I'm going to have to make a decision on what to do with it. If I decide to sell the bike, I don't want to sell it and I don't want to advertise it and have people come around my house all the time and tyre kickers and all the rest of it. I just don't think I want to do that. So I was thinking of maybe offering it as an exchange, finding something that I can ride and simply exchange the bike. And I was thinking of maybe a big air-cooled Kawasaki from the late 70s, early 80s, or a GS1000, something like that. a big roomy bike that I can ride comfortably. I don't mind the weight of the bike, it's just literally the riding position that I'm concerned about. I even thought about, because I have a Harley already, getting like a shovel head Harley, but as long as it's got electric start, because kick starting obviously is it's not as easy for me as it used to be. And it's a bike that I can tinker with and modify and enjoy owning. So, what do you think? What would you do? Have you got any ideas for me? If I can't ride this bike because of the riding position, I don't really want to have it as an ornament. That's not for me. Although Catherine was keen, we could put it upstairs and have it on display because it is such a good looking thing. But I don't think that's something I want to do. So today I really need to make a decision. Apart from my, I guess, typical Ducati engine shenanigans, I've replaced the fuel tank and the seat unit. It used to have a fiberglass tank and seat, and I guess the ethanol played havoc. It was really quite cool because it had a slit just here, a clear bit where you could see the fuel level, and I quite like that. It's reminiscent of the old racers. But the tank literally started to dissolve with the petrol, so I got myself this new tank, which I'm very pleased with. Look at these carbs, 40mm pumper carbs. Look at that, huge, great gaping carburetors. Look good though, don't they? While being a very sturdy, stiff frame, it does look kind of elegant, doesn't it? Purposeful. Electric start, thank God. None of it starts terribly easy. You need to flood it mercilessly and pump the carbs a bit with the throttle to squirt neat fuel into those big intakes. But yeah, it always starts. This exhaust pipe, I was forever repainting it. So I thought, I know, I'll put some wrap on there. I'm really pleased with that. I think that looks nice. Does sound glorious though. As I'm getting older, I'm thinking it's a bit noisy. I have put a baffle, or an extra baffle, in there. Doesn't seem to have made any difference to the performance, and it has quietened it down a little bit. And when I was doing track days, or the few track days that I did on it, luckily, because it's a V-twin, or a lower revving V-twin, they let me go to the noise tests at 4,000, which is lower than other bikes, and it just crept through. Now this all brings me to my dilemma. I have recently had a new hip and I still do have arthritis in my other hip. Now this bike is quite a radical riding position. The pegs are really high and far back. The bars are really low. I have thought about maybe changing the pegs somehow, changing the bars somehow, but I don't think that would be in keeping with the character of the bike. Okay, so I've just got back from a ride. It was uncomfortable. It was so difficult with the limited steering lock. The noise was glorious. The handling, fantastic. The brakes, pretty damn good. I've done about half an hour's riding and yeah, I can't say it was easy, but what it was exciting, satisfying, wonderful. I can't sell this, not just yet anyway. So I think we're going to stay together for a little bit longer. Well, thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this latest episode on the grumpy petrolhead. And if you'd like to see some more grumpy petrolhead adventures, please stick around and hopefully we'll see you on the next one. So cheerio.